Welcome to this special episode of the Chiefs, and of course, with us still are Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Robbie Alampay of One News. Gentlemen and ladies, of course, welcome again to the Chiefs.
Good evening.
I think we expect tonight the president to give an address to the nation for his 8th report to Congress.
Dapat lang, Monday ngayon eh. Hindi pala, Tuesday pala.
Tuesday ngayon. Dahil nasa Davao siya, nasa Davao City siya nung weekend hanggang kahapon.
Kaya naka-standby naman. Although baka maya-maya sabihin bukas na lang uli siya magsasalita.
Ganun ba?
Hindi pa natin alam Naka-standby lahat pa rin. Naka-standby pa rin.
So magpupuyat na naman kayo?
Hindi naman, naghihintay kami ng alert. Kuminsan naman sinasabi na pwede naman.
Ina-announce nila, at least kahapon in-announce nila ahead of time.
Maaga.
Na walang announcement.
Naghihintay pa.
Is he back in Manila? Is he back in Manila?
Yeah, he's back in Manila. He's already back in Manila. I'm not sure lang if it was today that he was back or last night. Kasi kagabi parang balak nila maghabol Pero I don't know kung nakatuloy sila kagabi.
Private plane.
But as to kung ano inaantay natin, we're getting news now from our producers in the newsroom na ongoing pa rin daw ang meeting ng presidente.
Yung with the IATF.
Ng IATF.
What do you think they're deciding on?
Well, there's
maybe they're doing
there's obviously a lot to talk about. I mean, yung pag-lift, yung adjustment from ECQ to MECQ.
Yeah, yung nangyari
yung evaluation nung weekend and the first 4 days of the MECQ at sino yung mga hindi nag-comply. Sino kasama doon?
Yung ibang mayor sa Metro Manila.
Is there a possibility that they will actually impose ECQ again?
The latest word from Secretary Anyo, hindi naman daw kailangan. Pero kapag may mga humihinging mayor, yung ibang governor, kasi marami daw pasaway o kaya nahihirapan sila na mag-enforce nung baka nga pagbigyan. So yun yata pinag-usapan ngayon. Medyo mahirap yung business na yan.
But even without ascribing it to discipline or kung pasaway o there are basic things na katulad na pag-usapan natin kahapon that they still have to attend to, like communicating. I mean, clarifying what it is. I mean, basic things like that.
Okay. Ngayon daw, kung wala kang quarantine pass, hindi ka na makakapasok sa mall. Yan yung bago.
Ngayon malinaw na. Paano yung jogging? Paano yung exercising outside the house?
Siguro, I think within your subdivision, pwede naman Ang problema lang kung lahat maglalabasan dun sa mga common areas. So yun.
Yeah, but even then kasi may class distinctions yan. For those who live in subdivisions, they would be allowed out to exercise. Those who live in District 1 in Tondo,
Saka may mga lugar na naka-hard lockdown di ba?
Mandaluyong, for example, may portions.
Yeah, meron pa rin Kaya mahirap nga So kailangan marami pang ipipinis dyan
Why don't we bring in our first guest tonight? Kasi baka may TV na rin siya kung ano nangyayari sa IATF. Of course, with us tonight, again, one of our sukes, I suppose, the Interior Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya, who joins us live via video conferencing. Usec Malaya, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Usec.
Hi, sir. There you go.
Good evening po.
Good evening, Usec.
Parang hindi ka mag-close, Usec.
Ni Usec.
Hindi pa yata tayo naririnig. Magpapadala daw tayo ng mga...
We'll try it again.
Okay. Anyway.
In the meantime, in other news, ano pa nangyari? Ano pang nangyari?
ABS-CBN. The franchise.
Yun. The other story, yun.
That's another big story. Yeah.
Nirecall yung provisional franchise.
Yeah.
As
in, wala na yun, no? They're now gonna hear the 25-year franchise.
Kasi wala naman daw provisional law.
Yeah.
Kaya gagawa nila ng regular franchise, although mukhang matatagalan na until July daw By that time, ano na yan? State of the nation na yun.
Yeah.
Diba?
When they were talking about the
speaker.
when they were talking about the provisional franchise, ang timetable nila for that provisional franchise approval was mga October. If I recall correctly from Maria Fernandez, our correspondent there. Pero with the 25-year franchise, mas mahaba pa yan. Kasi kung maibigay nila yan, wala nang atrasan yan.
Wala na talaga. So
Not for the next 25
mahaba
years.
ang hearing yan. Matagal ang hearing yan. Yeah.
Mahirap di ba? Magta-transition ka to to the next of Congress Tapos after the SONA, meron yung budget, magdi-deliberate siya. Napakaraming bagong bill.
Saka baka magbago ng speaker.
Well, that's one thing.
Ano yata siya? October siya. Diba?
But more basic than that, you have to wonder what's going on at the House of Representatives. Last week, tinatanong natin yan. No, parang okay, foolproof na ba yung plano yan? Temporary lang naman, stopgap lang naman. Kampante ba kayo dyan? And they were saying, kampante kami dyan, the members of Congress are in line. We don't expect na may manggugulo sa executive. We expect the courts will respect us. And now from all fronts, parang umatras sila Diba? So it really makes you wonder about the leadership at the House of Representatives right now. Did they overestimate their sway on all branches of government?
Actually, ang nawiwirdohan ako na hindi pala nila alam na hindi ka pwedeng magpasa on first and second reading on the same day. How can you do this?
I think it's more basic than that. I think the leadership obviously could cite precedents for anything. They were marami ring abogado dyan. So, I think the more basic problem was hindi nila alam na may kokontra. They really thought na hindi, madali na to. And then they didn't expect na meron pang mag-iingay.
But Congressman,
kasi all it takes
opposed to it from day one di ba?
May mga nagsasabi na hindi talaga pwede yun from the start. Hindi daw pwede yung professional authority, provisional franchise, whatever you call it. Basta provisional, you need daw a regular bill. A regular
and in the end, all you need is an attorney Larigadon, and then everything is
may Supreme Court pa ngayon. Tapos daming legal battle. Let's not forget that ultimately it will have to be signed by the president. Diba? So
the final gatekeeper.
Malaking question mark yun.
Well, si Usec Malaya is already online. Let's bring him in already. Si Usec Johnson Malaya ng Interior Department. Usec, are you there? Hi, sir.
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, sir. Thank you for joining us. We're tempted to ask you about ABS-CBN, but we will not.
I am not the right authority
about the gathering of signatures. The fake news.
Sir, kamusta po? Are you still having a meeting with the IATF and the President? O tapos na ho ba?
No, yung meeting with the president was with several cabinet members only. It's like 6 or 7 cabinet members. So kanina, we were together sa Camp Aguinaldo for the Senate hearing. So we were all together, and around 5 o'clock, the president called him to a meeting to Malacanang. So they had to excuse themselves from the Senate hearing at around 5:30. So I am not in Malacanang. They're the ones in Malacanang.
Okay, sir. Well, sir, moving on to our topic for tonight, of course, yung MECQ. It's day 4 of the modified enhanced community quarantine for Metro Manila and a lot of other parts of the country. And all the indicators that we've seen and heard so far, even from government officials, do not sound very good. For example, yung mga malls are pretty crowded, especially on weekend. And today, the MMDA was saying that there are too many vehicles on the streets, 100,000 vehicles now, more or less, along EDSA. That's a fourth of the regular vehicle crowding EDSA on a regular day pre-COVID. So, did we lose Usec?
Hindi lang yun, Ed, no? Yung public markets. Yun ang talagang, wala talagang controls doon. Buti pa nga yung mga mall kahit paano, di ba? Merong thermal scanning, tapos
merong
yes. Pero sa
depende din yata sa Depende din sa local governments kasi may mga ibang cities okay naman, disiplinado naman sa public markets, nakokontrol naman nila, saka sumusunod naman yung mga tao. Siguro depende sa mayor eh. Depende sa management talaga eh.
Yeah.
Ito mukhang si Usec Malaya pwede natin kausapin, but mukhang wala munang video. I think he can come in
baka we
over
can get him on
audio.
the phone na lang.
Ed,
I
kung
think he's
alanganin
already
yung,
there.
He's
Usec,
already there.
Usec.
He's already there. Yeah.
Hi sir, can you hear us, sir?
Audio na lang yata.
Sir,
Audio.
we'll try to call you on the phone. Baka it's better we just talk on the phone. Kasi
Or
kung
mag-upload
talagang
tayo.
mahina yung signal natin, mahihirapan lang
Let's take
tayo.
a break for a technical hayaan muna natin makahabol. Maybe we'll take a break for a while.
Okay.
Please hang on. We'll try to fix this. The chiefs will be right back.
Welcome back to the Chiefs, and with us is still Interior Undersecretary Johnson Malaya, who joins us to talk about the COVID-19 and the MECQ. Usec Malaya, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Sorry for my internet connection, okay?
It's okay, sir. It's okay. It's good. It's still good to have you here with us. Yeah. We also, as you were saying, it is day 4 of the modified ECQ. We have, I understand, 12 more days to go, and these 4 days may be a good indication as to whether or not we may have to tighten the ship a bit more, or see if we're going to have a relaxation after 12 days. Can we have your department and, if possible, the IATF's assessment of these past 4 days as far as compliance and enforcement of the MECQ rules?
Well, immediately as soon as we saw the situation in the malls, the secretary directed the Philippine National Police to do inspections of all the malls, and we saw that yesterday when the NCRPO went around all the malls in the country, in Metro Manila in particular, to try to make assessment on compliance with DTI regulations. So the secretary also informed all of the mayors that they have the authority to close the malls if needed. And this is what, for example, Governor Rulia did in Cavite when he ordered all of the malls there closed in the meantime. So our assessment is that it's birth pains. No, people are still adjusting to this. Of course, people were stuck in their homes for 2 months. So there's really this coming out, and we will continue to monitor the situation, find out if we need to make some.
So, sir, you are, if I'm getting you right, you are not, or the department is not concerned about the past 4 days, and that you are basically leaving it up to the LGUs to manage the situation on a more territorial level. Usec?
Nawala yata ulit si Usec.
Yeah. Okay.
Nawala ulit.
Mahirap talaga ang connection ni Usec.
Actually, gusto kong tanungin, sinarado nga ba yung mga mall sa Cavite? Kasi kanina, sabi naman
hindi tinuloy.
Sabi ni John Vic,
Umatras sila eh. Umatras.
Ginawa nilang stricter. Like, kunyari, you can only stay there for no more than an hour. May ganun ng rules.
May time card sila.
Yeah, tapos may time card.
Ni-recall nila pareho din ang house. Ni-recall din yung order.
Yeah.
Shutdown pareho ng house. Na-recall din yung order sa Cavite. So, tuloy yung shopping mall sa Cavite ngayon. Although, ayan na nga, naglagay na sila ng mga guidelines para hindi magkagulo. Siguro magsusuruan sa mall.
Pero sa akin, yung mall especially is emblematic of andyan yung lahat ng confusion natin sa messaging. Because on the one hand, kailangan natin i-address yung sistema sa mall. On the other hand, they will tell you, ang bottom line sa MECQ, pareho ng ECQ, which is stay at home. Diba? So, kaya nakakalito talaga yung mga tao. Some people understand it, that MECQ just means stay at home, but we're starting to open up, particularly for essential services and so on. But all the messaging is centered on the public places and what will be the rules once you get there. Diba? Kaya ako, pakiramdam ko talaga, everybody's really confused because on the one hand, you hear that message na actually you still have to treat it as if ECQ, may konti lang tayo pinapaandar na mga essential services. On the other hand, when you keep hearing kailangan ng rules sa malls, okay, naririnig mo yun. But it's also sends you the signal na ay siguro pwede nang magpunta doon.
Marami din nagpuntahan sa mall, to pay their bills. Kasi ngayong nag-ECQ, nakapamigay na ng mga resibo mga hindi resibo kundi the bills. So people went to the bayad
centers,
counters. Kaya haba na mga pila doon. Kaya lalo nadagdagan, saka naghihintay ka doon. Siyempre after that you go around, ganun ang malling, di ba? You go around, tingnan mo ko ilan yung dumami tao.
But you would understand yung mga bayad centers eh. But what about coffee shops? Coffee shops are open and people are lining up outside coffee shops.
It's not even essential. I mean, food is coffee essential. And you can get it from the groceries, right? Why do you have to open a mall just so you can take out whatever, fried chicken or coffee. Essential ba yun, di ba? So, parang you wonder if you have to even open up a mall knowing that it may not really even be feasible for those guidelines, di ba? I mean, how are you going to keep people from the malls? You're going to have to line them up, and you're talking about thousands of mall goers lined up outside one entrance. Is that even feasible? Ako, parang
And
feeling ko,
we are a mall culture pa naman, di ba?
yes, exactly. Di ba?
Dadagdagan nila yung mga entrance and exit na na may mga...
Hindi nga raw eh. Kasi pag dinagdagan nga raw nila, lalong hindi nila makokontrol. So parang the malls to me are really tricky. Tricky. I mean, how can you control that? Where a mall-going people, there's nothing you can really do inside except to take out, right? You can't even dine there. So, you're just opening a building up to people who just so want to step out of their homes already. So parang nag-provide ka ng magnet. Is that really necessary? Diba?
Pero yun yung pinakamalaki symbol ng that you are reopening for business. If you're reopening the economy, lalo sa atin Pag sinabi yung bukas na yung mall, we are starting to reopen. Napakalaking messaging nun
Pero kasi
that really is the other side of the conversation, diba? We're talking about opening up the economy. Wala pa si Usec Malaya, but speaking of opening up the economy, we do have with us now the president of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, or ECOP, Mr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis. Mr. Ortiz-Luis, welcome po to the Chiefs.
Hi, sir.
Good evening to the Chiefs cast.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening po.
Sir, how do you really feel about the lifting?
Sir, I don't know if you were hearing our conversation earlier on, but obviously we're talking about yung mga nangyari nitong weekend. Let's take it from the perspective muna of ECOP, of the employers in the country. How do you see the MECQ, and how do you see things moving forward given everything that happened?
Well, we were hoping that with the MECQ that people can really start working already, even if it's only 50% of the companies that are allowed.
Yes.
Hopefully, we were estimating baka mga 500,000, no? 500,000 if they're able to work already, go to their work. That's 500 less than the government has to support, no? And that would be cheaper than But unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. There are still some problems that cropped up. Like for instance, 90% of our companies are micro, but they employ about 60% of the workers. And yung mga requirements are something they cannot afford. Many of them really, after all this time of blackouts, they have suffered losses, and even without the problems of cropped up, many of them are really not thinking of opening yet. We had surveys, and they say that if there will be any help to them from the government side, which I think is coming, but it's not yet very clear how they can avail of it, then they will open. But unfortunately, what happened is a lot of people went out. There were no mass transportation, and some of the companies which are just going to open, there are some requirements that need to be prepared.
Yes.
Like for instance, you have to purchase certain equipments.
Right.
It's a good thing that the mass testing is not compulsory or required, but you have to do spacing. Some will have to provide their employees' quarters, which I know for sure that even the big ones, they don't have that. No, it's so much more with the small ones. So my estimate is not even 20% of those who are supposed to start last Monday were able to start. No, and unless we are able to solve the problems, I think it will be long time going before we even come up to 50% of those who are allowed to start. No? Most of the ones who started will be malls or they were able to provide the vehicles for the reserves. But the small ones, the 90%, nobody has service. So what happened is those who have cars, and because of spacing also, hindi
Sir. Sir, kanina pa we were talking to DILG Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya. Unfortunately, my technical problems, but he did get into mentioning na birth pains to. We're transitioning from ECQ to MECQ. Birth pains lang to. But beyond the inevitable glitches, how do the employers and business owners look at how important it is for government to open us up, not just slowly but properly, para walang atrasan?
Well, I think you used the right word, properly, and I think it was proper the way you started. It looks like it's a favor that people can work, no? But you have to do a lot of things that that companies are not able to do. So without realizing that the sooner people can get to work, the cheaper it will be for the government, and much cheaper than having to sustain a lot of people, no? Which we obviously know the money is not infinite, no? And even the delivery system is defective. Even if you have the money, the delivery system is defective. So obviously, it is impossible. The earlier we get people to work, the better for everyone.
Sir, what do you expect from government? What kind of help can the government give businesses, especially the SMEs, in terms of fulfilling the requirements for getting the workers back to work?
Well, we realize that there are some protocols that you have to follow, no?
Right.
But then if you pass it on all to the employers, especially those who are not or having difficulty already operating, most of them, then you're basically telling we're not interested that you operate.
For example, shuttle service. For example, is that something that can be provided for easily by the companies, realistically?
Of course not. The 90%, that is why you had a lot of cars.
Kaya nga, sir, So
yung mga may
what do you
kotse, they
government do? Yeah. So what do you suggest government do? Halimbawa. Kasi
as I said, if they have a clue on how to arrange I think the problem is they did not allow because they do not know how many was going out. They do not know how to do it. Yung transportation, because obviously it was something that should have been prepared. Na can you imagine people walking from Caloocan to Manila just to be able to go, and then and some people will be going to the office and hindi naman pala, and their office is not yet open, and there was no communication. And that's why a lot of people went out. Because they're all excited to get out of the and yet there is nowhere to go to.
Was it just a matter of preparing you, giving you time to prepare for the fulfillment of these requirements? Halimbawa, would you say that you will be ready with a shuttle service, the mass testing, voluntary testing by, say, July? Is it just a matter of time that you need,
Well,
or do you really need financial support even for these requirements?
As I said, 90% are micro. Definitely, a lot of them need support. A lot of them are not really planning to open up yet because they can't afford it.
Yes.
Obviously, the bigger ones, the upper side of the about 8.5% is small. There are those who can afford shuttle service, who can rent, and the big ones, of course, But these are the malls. These are
Yes.
the people who can shuttle them. But imagine, how do you shuttle people, especially if you're a small one, when some of your workers are coming from Bulacan, some of the
Outside.
people are coming from
Laguna.
Cavite.
Cavite.
Yes.
How do you provide shuttle
Exactly.
service for them? So it's impossible. It has really got to be arrange bus transportation, and it should have been studied well, how to be able to pipe in the mass transportation. But I don't think they
Were
have a
you? I
clue
mean,
on what
yes,
to
but
do.
you say you think, and that's your perception. But were you consulted? Were the Employers Confederation and the businessmen and the entrepreneurs and the industry leaders, as far as you can tell, were you consulted on how to open up and what will be the
Uh,
needs of the people?
well, mostly we are reactionary. They come up with a decision, and then we come up with suggestion. We were saying that sana in the IATF,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they were using some of the uh,
Recommendations.
no, some of the business people already there in the
Mm-hmm.
discussion itself. You
Yes.
have people like Joey Concepcion.
Yes.
But they're not in the discussion. Of course, we come up with the recommendation, and you remember the lockout, the first day that it was lockout, that
Yes.
they decided in the afternoon, they announced it, and then the next day it was
Blackout
effective.
na. Yes.
And then they expect people coming from the province returning
Yes.
home
Yes.
to
Yes,
present
right.
papers
Daming
that they did
stranded.
they didn't even know that they will be no, when they come back. Uh, if these things were properly uh, relayed and properly, with the business sector, they would be, But the problem is the decision on the recovery of the economy. I'm not don't know who's going to decide. Is this the expertise of the Department of Health
Yeah.
or the military? This one. So why if we were going to open up the business and there was expectation, we would have said that, why don't you use experts to plan out how to do the the mass transportation, because that is a important factor there. Otherwise, you're just saying, well, we from ECQ, you are now MECQ, but actually it's saying, well, only those who can afford shuttle can work,
Yes.
but
Mr. Luis,
there's very few of them.
Mr. Luis, do we understand that you're saying that medyo kinulang yung pagkonsulta sa business sector, and the government in decision making here is relying more on, well, they're supposed to rely more on public health experts, but at this point in the pandemic, you're saying businessmen, business groups should be more consulted as the economy is opened up.
Yes, because they're the ones who would know, for instance, what will happen if you don't give mass transportation.
Yeah.
So apart from mass transportation, because now from MECQ, everyone is hoping, expecting na eventually we'll be moving to a general community quarantine. On the way there, in the transition, what else do you want to see from the government or from the public? What other changes do you want to see transitioning to a
We
GC apart from transport?
we would like to see more analytical way to approach it, anticipating what will be the problem, and preparing for it, no? So that we don't waste time. The longer we are locked down, the longer people can. It's the more expensive for the government, and the more expensive and detrimental the economy to the economy. So it is to the advantage of everybody, including government, to be able to plan ahead and see and project what will happen. Not that we see first what is wrong and we try to to correct it. Look, in the ECQ,
Yeah.
there were companies who are exempted. Initially, like an afterthought, or okay, exporters accepted, and then when it became very clear that there will be problem with food, or food processors will be exempted, no, and then we will allow some services to be able to do it, and then they communicated that all the LGUs, you cannot come up with your own regulations that will counter the free flow of goods. But what has happened? Initially, even you in the media, you were supposed to use your media ID,
Yes.
and then they said you have to secure IATF pass.
Yes.
But when it became evident that they are not capable of issuing them, they say, "Oh, you extend it, no?" And then later on, when exporters, yung mga drivers who are supposed to be service people or who are supposed to work, they were told, okay, no more IATF. We will transfer it to the DICT, rapid pass.
So it
Rapid
looks
pass.
like, so you're saying that it looks like they're making up the rules as they go along. Now,
Yes.
yes, and you're now saying that they have to conduct a really deep analytical study. But we also know that studies of this nature, in fact, if you're talking about transport, this will take a long time to actually perfect. And there will be great debate over how to do it. I mean, is that even feasible? Knowing that, we're trying to salvage what we can of economy now.
Well, look at the latest data. The latest data is in Southeast Asia. We have the most debt percentage, 6.6 as against.
Nawala siya.
Naputol. Pero you could see where the frustration of the employers are, di ba? Parang it's a good point. Yung sinabi niya, if you look back nung first day ng ECQ and people were caught in the offices and then they couldn't go home. This is the exact reverse of what's happening. And I think yung point ng ECOP is apparently they didn't learn from that. Just the basic lesson of anticipate what the people will need to get from point A to point B.
No,
Even
really,
that wasn't well thought out.
But there was also a terrible logic behind that. You don't want to give people enough time to travel to the provinces because they might be spreading the disease.
Yes. In fact, they left kasi nag-community quarantine first, di ba? That was
yes. But I'm only talking about. I'm not second guessing that ECQ. What we're talking about here is what the Employers Confederation is trying to communicate, which is that it should have been better planned. And certainly we had a lot of time to imagine the scenarios for reopening the economy slowly pa nga eh. Diba? Not even a full-blown opening. And all he's saying is, parang hindi man lang natin na-anticipate yung logistical concerns, the systemic things that have to be put in place. And they're saying that, from our experience just over the past 3 months, some of the things should have been basic in anticipating.
Sige, we can try welcoming back Mr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis of the Employers Confederation. Mr. Ortiz-Luis, can you hear us?
Like what?
You were talking about the debt.
Tuloy lang po natin, sir, yung sinasagot ninyo kanina.
We were talking
like what
about
I was saying.
Yes.
Like what I was saying. The data that is coming out in Southeast Asia, we have the biggest percentage of debt. we have also the least percentage of recoveries, the lowest of recoveries. And yet, we are the longest in lockout. And I don't know if we are the biggest spender also. But the concentration of the expense, rather than using what the others did, we relied too much on lockouts. Because a lockout is supposed to be a defense when you are surprised and you are not prepared. But we have the longest time to prepare. And even now, at this time that the others are getting out already, we have the highest debt, we have the lowest recovery, because you test our testing system. No, we are late in acquiring testing system. We are late in having the quarantine facilities. Our hospitals are not prepared, and we are being confronted with the fact that if there are more people who get sick, hospitals cannot. But these are things that were solved by the others. Look in Wuhan. In 10 days' time, they built 16 giant hospitals. They converted. And yet tayo, after 2 months, we're still talking about facilities.
Mass testing.
Sir, have you conveyed these concerns of yours to the people who should be representing the business community? For example, si Joy Concepcion, si Secretary Mon Lopez. These are people who are in the IATF who should be putting forward these points of view.
Well, of course, we have. There are also times that we have meetings with the law, but we meet mostly with the economic managers. And the economic managers are not the one. I don't think they are the ones dictating here. I think it's it's controlled by the other forces. That definitely not the economic or business sector. We are mostly reactionary.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, kasi when we talk to members of the IATF, they always like to emphasize that it is for them a balancing act. It's a balancing act between health versus the health of the economy. Perhaps in this case, they've taken a more conservative approach with a preferential bias towards, I would suppose, public health.
Well, one example. Until now, we have a problem with the senior citizen. And senior citizen is perception. I don't know if they're trying to block out senior citizen initially. Is something that is upheld by fact, no? Because initially, most of the senior citizen, because of limited space and testing equipment in the hospitals, most of those who were brought to the hospital and who died were senior citizens because sila yung mga may pera, sila yung nakapagpunta sa hospital. But lately, I don't even know. A lot of people are saying the ones who are really getting sick are at the 25 to 55 years old. And then, but yet there is this bias against senior citizen as an afterthought after a lot of house that you probably heard. They say, okay, seniors, we didn't really intend the senior citizens to be there. That was the announcement. But yet, when the guideline came out, okay, we will give some exceptions for senior citizens that is going to work, going to buy things. Even in the most crucial for senior citizen, like no contact sport, like golf, which half of those who are golfers probably will be senior citizens because they need it for their health. And that's the only way that probably keeps them and they're still not allowed. We don't even know why, and I don't know if it's based by on facts at this time. So I think yung consultation doon really is is lacking because I think even the definition of senior citizen of 60 years old is probably the military definition of senior citizen, which is 58.
I mean, sir, as Ed said, obviously some people are erring on the side of caution, but in terms of opening up the economy, there's also a sense of urgency. From the employer's perspective, the Employers Confederation, is there any math here to illustrate on how small a closing window this is for businesses? How many businesses are growing more vulnerable per week, per month, that we are unable to open, and so on?
Well, 80% of the business were closed during the lockout here in Metro Manila and in Luzon. Because of the exception for exporters, for about 20% probably were operating at half capacity. So 80%, and many of them will be included in the modified enhanced community quarantine. So we were expecting that maybe another 500,000 might be able to work already, even if at 50%, because mga 1 million yung in Manila is not working. We're just talking about the formal sector. I'm not even talking about the informal sector.
Yes.
So we were hoping that 500,000. Can you imagine 500,000 if they started working? It's 500,000. You don't have to give 5,000 a month for.
Yes.
And yet, there seems to be no interest in trying to make sure that this 500,000 works, and eventually the 1 million be able to work. Even if there is no problem, the reaching the full capacity of these companies, even if they decide they will still operate, will take at least 6 months. And you know, when you open, you do not know whether you have buyers because wala namang buying capacity. And you're operating at a loss with big expense because you have to quarter your people, you have to shuttle, you have to buy all these paraphernalia, which many times nobody even telling them that you have to supply this, but you cannot buy. Try to buy vitamin C that you are supposed to supply. Try to buy some of the things that you're supposed to do. You cannot buy. So how do they expect these little companies to be able to start unless tama si Presidente noong una, sabi niya, if we do not help this SMEs, no, they will not be able to operate. So we have to help them. But even that is most of the help, the government, like SSS, and then loans available, that should help. But it's not that easy to access them also. We know that also. So day one, dapat sana nakahanda ng lahat yun. And everybody, because it's to the interest of the government. Can you imagine how much it is for pag kung one month na hindi makatrabaho yung 500,000 supposed to be working at 5,000 a person? How much is it? Magkano lang? Why are we imprisoning those who can work and yet our concentration, like what the others did, they concentrated on those PUI and PUM, and they prepared hospitals or quarantine centers where they are confident that they will be cured.
Actually, the big debate nga raw now, sir, is whether mass testing should include all or only those workers who are symptomatic. What's your stand on it?
Well, definitely, if it's mass testing, the companies will not be able to do it. Anyway, the symptomatic ones are the ones you're trying to catch. So maybe you may meron silang pipirmahan, meron thermal tester, and then you have but yung mga tester na that we are supposed to, it's a good thing that they eventually decided it's not compulsory. If they even they cannot catch the asymptomatic there. And even if they do, after a few days, the results will come out. They have already been mixed with the other people. And then you have to retest them.
Well, seeing what happened in the past 4 days since inumpisa na yung MECQ, what in the short term, what do you want to see in the coming days? And how worried are you about a second wave? Kasi maapektuhin din ng mga negosyo kapag nangyari yun. What do you want to see?
But that's also a big debate among us businessmen. We are quarantined, and even the PUM, PUI, they're quarantined with their families. So they're probably infecting their household, and eventually they go out and they infect somebody else. It's better that you try to really separate those who are symptomatic and treat them, but you have to present decent quarantine areas. Otherwise, they will run away or they will hide, and that is not going to work. And it is cheaper, much cheaper. How much that is cost to have 20,000 or 30,000 that you are quarantining? You spend what, 2,000 1,000 a day for them if you are quarantined properly, but that is only 20,000 rather than quarantining everybody, locking down everybody, and you have to feed everybody. Much cheaper. And yun yung dapat na inasikaso nung una pa. We would have learned our lesson from Taiwan, from our neighbor Thailand. Yet now we're still trying to beef up our ability to test. We're still trying to build up our ability to quarantine people, our hospitals or what. We're even trying to build up, and many of these things that we are trying to know, these are what the government is saying. It will have to be supplied by the employers. Who cannot supply them?
Sir, at the rate we're going, what do you think will be the survival rate of businesses?
Well, it's not a survival rate. As a matter of fact, they're dead now. We're talking about how fast will be the recovery. I think at this time, we don't even have 20% of those who we intend to be operating, our capacity to operate now. Well, 20% yung una na nauna, but out of the remaining ones, I think we basically got 20% only. And that's a pity because now there are frustrations, there are expenses involved from the people, and yet we're having a hard time already supporting them.
Are you seeing business recovery by Christmas? Usually, kahit walang pera mga tao, umaakit ang demand by the holidays. Are you seeing business recovery by Christmas?
Actually, we were really banking that on the third quarter, we are already starting to beef up yung employment. And if you build up employment, the spending capacity and the demand and the will be there, no? Remember, we still have the problems of our OFW here.
Exactly.
And that's adding a big problem. So we were thinking that by Christmas, baka malaki na but not this way. If they're not able to work, even if we put them in general, they have to be able to. Our thinking when we were talking about this, sana hindi nagkagulo-gulong masyado kung ang ginawa maliwanag sino yung mga who are the companies that can open, to what extent they can open, minimal the requirements, no? Well, yung protocols, well, fine. But they have to understand it's very expensive for these people to operate. Very expensive. So doon, dapat palo na tulong na of the government, no? Trying to really push them to start working, no? But it's very slow in coming. Dapat sana, we were saying nung bago when dapat sana if they have the capacity when it was announced that these are the no Saturday tsaka no Monday, kung if it was very clear that only these companies and we will issue pass only to those who will be called in by the companies should be in the street. No? The traffic will not be bad. People will not be going out. But the problem is the capacity to be able to do this is beyond the capacity of the government. As I was saying, even during the EQC, issuing a pass, the processing, sometimes you apply for a pass, do sa rapid pass, 2 weeks is not yet out, you follow up, nobody's there to follow to answer you. So what more if hundreds of thousands of workers are to be issued passes? I would have thought that it would be very efficient if they outsource it to private sector who are qualified to do it, and solve the problem. A lot of experts that they can call how to be able to cross the problem of which bus transportation will open, where, and how, and who will be. And if passes are issued to those who are working, then you can control the mass transportation. Because everybody now is out there. These are companies, you show your ID, and you are one of those qualified, so you're out. So if they open the mass transportation, but they will all be there. But if there are passes and they are capable of doing this, who will be allowed to board them, then they can control. But the capacity to do it is not there.
Sir, let me ask you about scenarios for our MSMEs, especially since sila nga yung, sabi nga ninyo, maiksi yung PC. Now, sabi nga ninyo, mga 20% lamang ngayon na nasa 50%, if I got it correctly, 50% yung kanilang working capacity ngayon. Kung magtuloy itong MECQ hanggang katapusan, ilang porsyento po yung mare-resuscitate? Let's put it that way. At kung ma-extend pa another 15 days, sabi natin, kasi pag sinabi ng gobyerno na mukhang magsi-second wave, baka ma-extend pa yan eh. Kung ma-extend ng another 15 days yan, ilang porsyento po yung pwede pang ma-resuscitate?
When you extend it longer, yung and you bring them that, the more even yung nagbukas baka magsara. Dahil wala na, mahikli na ang PC talaga eh.
Okay.
Oh dear.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your insights po. Maraming salamat to Sergio Ortiz-Luis of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines. Sir, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you also.
Maraming salamat po.
And that will be all for this edition of the CHIEFS. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. I'm Ed Lingao, One News.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.